Hey everybody, today we are going to be putting together a metal walk-in chicken run. This one in particular was made by the brand called Aleco, and this was purchased from the Home Depot for $303, which I do believe was a clearance price because I just looked at the website and they're now back up to $450. Here you can see it comes in 3 boxes. This is the first page of the instructions, and at the top here you'll see the tools that are required. I will note that it said a 1/2-inch wrench was required. I don't know if maybe they had a substitute for mine in particular, but the 1/2-inch wrench didn't fit anything with mine. I don't know if they're all like that or not, but I use the adjustable wrench for just about everything. So the frame for this connects using, I believe they're called snap buttons, so no tools are necessary, super easy for one person to put together. You can barely see it, but I will note that the base for this, they are on little pedestals, which is really nice because the chicken wire connects to the frame using zip ties, so having that space between the ground and the metal definitely makes that process a lot easier. So here I am just laying out the bottom. And this part all went very smoothly. There weren't really any issues with things not matching up. And also this whole thing is very lightweight, so here you can see I'm trying to decide where I want to put it, and I'm able to move everything very easily. I eventually decided I wanted a space between our other chicken coop there and this run. So now we're going to apply the vertical bars here. So this run is 20 foot deep, 10 foot wide, and 6.5 foot tall, so it's a very good sized run. Our plan for it is we are going to eventually move our geese into this pen. The geese are right now where our garden is going to be next year, we've decided, and we hatched out 3 bourbon red turkeys this year, so those guys are going to go in there with the geese. So I like the good height on it because the turkeys are definitely going to want to roost up pretty high, and it's nice and spacious, so there's enough room for the turkeys to get away from the geese because the geese can be jerks sometimes. It's kind of hard to tell in the video, but that third bar on that left-hand side there, it's a little cattywampus. The push button holes weren't quite square on it, so it's going to cause me a little bit of grief later. I'll show you here, but really this peak part was the most difficult for this whole build. You can see me kind of struggling with it here, but this was the only part where I had to get assistance. Everything else I was able to do on my own. So this third peak here, this was the one that I had the most issue with. It didn't really matter how much I twisted and pulled. The push buttons just did not want to go in the holes. They were like right there. They were so close, but they just weren't quite square. So I broke out the ladder. This was the only time I needed to use the ladder. And I just kept finagling with them. And I think 2 out of the 4 peaks I wasn't able to do on my own. So I got my husband, and he came out, and he had some channel locks, and he was able to twist it enough to get those buttons to pop where they're supposed to be. So as you can see, this is actually coming together pretty quickly, aside from those few tricky ones that you're going to see me kind of struggle with here in a minute. Overall, this is not difficult to put together, and it does go by very quick. And this was also on a day where the heat index was like 100 degrees, so I was struggling a little bit anyways, but overall it was not a bad build by myself. So the next part it has you work on is the frame for the door, and this part wasn't bad, but it's just something that you have to keep adjusting and finagling with as you progress, just because it keeps popping out of place for one thing, and also you just kind of have to adjust the angle that the bars are at. And again, for this part, I never used the 1/2-inch wrench. I only used the adjustable and the 9/16 because I just didn't have any 1/2-inch bolts that it came with. So now we're going to apply this horizontal bar that goes across the top. And I really liked how this part was adjustable because I didn't want to have a large gap above the door where a raccoon could fit in. So it was really nice that I could move this down to where it is flush with the top of the door, which I'm putting together here. The door was really easy to put together. It was only 3 pieces. It didn't take very long at all. The door attaches with 2 metal hinges, which I'm applying here. And the latch that it comes with is just your real basic metal, I believe they call it a flip latch, just the type of latch that you would see on a chain link dog kennel. Up next are the hinges, and I'll also mention that this brand Aleco, they have 2 other sizes for this run. One is a 10 by 13 and the smallest is a 10 by 6.5. And again, more adjustments. It might have been easier to have had a level for this part, but you can make do without. Alright, and at this point the frame is completely put together. That was not bad at all. And now it's time to break out the chicken wire. The chicken wire came in 4 smaller rolls. I was a little afraid that it would all come in one large roll, which would have made putting this together by myself a lot more difficult, but being in 4 small rolls made it a lot more manageable, and it was not bad at all. So the instructions have you start the chicken wire on one side like this, and then it has you roll all the way over. And you attach the chicken wire using zip ties. They provide 300 zip ties. They're small white ones, and that was not enough. I bought about 200 additional, and I still feel like I could have used more. And this is probably because the instructions said to put the zip ties about, I think it's 20 centimeters apart, which is about 7 inches, and I put them a lot closer than that, just to make it as predator proof as possible. So now we're on to day 2. The first day it took me about 4 hours to get to this point, and now we're on day 2, and as you can see there was a wardrobe change. I think this is a good example for Indiana weather. First clip I was sweating and it was 100 degrees, and now in this one it had rained this morning and I had to wear a jacket because it was cold out. So now we're moving on, trying to finish up the roof. So most of that I skipped over just because it's so redundant, but now we're working on the back wall. And the back wall I actually messed up because the instructions said to roll the chicken wire vertically again, but doing that you're going to have a seam in the middle, and I didn't want to do that, and I realized that if you roll it horizontally instead, you can have just one piece across the back. So I did make a cut, but I will use that in the future here. But for the back, it should all be just one piece. Also, for the front and the back sections, there is extra chicken wire from where the peak goes, but I did not cut that off. I actually just layered it over top of the other chicken wire, and that's because they provide you with at least one tarp, but I'm probably going to tarp in 2 different sections, in the front section and in the back, and I'll leave the middle one open just so it's not so muddy whenever I go to feed, and they'll have a dry spot to roost as well in the back. And since those tarps are going to be there, you're not going to be able to see that extra chicken wire anyways, so might as well keep it just in case you have to patch any holes later. And 80,000 zip ties later, the front left was complete, and now I'm going to take that piece that I mistakenly cut earlier, and I'm going to put that across the remaining front there. So the top peak, the door, and the right front all are the same piece of chicken wire. And that's not what the instructions said to do, but that's what I decided to do because that gap between the door and the door frame, especially on the right side where the hinges are, it's a good 2 or 3 inches, and I was a little concerned that a predator would be able to fit through there or be able to reach through. So I wanted that to be covered by chicken wire. So the only place I'm going to cut is towards the top there in between the door and that peak bar. Just so the door can open freely, but that gap towards the right is closed up. When all is said and done, I did have a little bit of chicken wire left over, maybe just a couple of feet from each roll. And I think I forgot to mention this earlier, but the chicken wire that they provided, it is coated in green, and it is very stretchy and it's very thin. So even by chicken wire standards, it's not a super strong material. So I'm definitely going to be doing some more predator proofing, not in this video, that'll be in a separate one, but just keep that in mind. I would describe it more as being like a garden fence than a chicken wire. So here's the final walkthrough after I've clipped off the ends of all the zip ties. From start to finish, it took about 7 hours total to completely do everything, which is not bad if you had an extra person, especially during the zip tying of the chicken wire. If you can make that part go a lot faster, that would definitely cut down your time by a couple of hours at least. So yeah, overall, I am pretty happy with the quality. It was not bad to put together at all, even by myself. As I said before, I'm going to be putting out a second video that will be on how I am doing some additional predator proofing to make this a little bit more secure. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks, bye.